My name is Madison Higgins, and this is my place in Canadian history. My story begins in 1920s in Ireland. In 1926, at 16 years old, my great-grandmother, Mary Ann Stevenson, later known as Mamie Higgins, came over to Canada with her family from a large town named Newtownards in the northern region of Ireland. My great-grandmother and her family came over due to the numerous job opportunities in Canada. In 1928, my great-grandfather, William Henry Higgins, came over to Canada as well, but from Sligo, which is a large city on the western coast of Ireland. He came over at the age of 19 by himself to help his family back in Ireland after his father died at 59 years old. They came over by boat, which took about a week to arrive in Canada. Although both of them lived in Ireland only 137 kilometers apart, they met at Calvary Church in Toronto. This leads to the historical perspective of my great-grandparents and other Irish people coming over from Ireland. My great-grandparents embodied how many others felt when coming to Canada from Ireland. They were excited for the opportunities up ahead, but also very nervous and anxious. People came over in the hopes of a better life, but were worried due to the unknown. My grandfather was born April 20th, 1940 in Toronto. This was only 6 months into World War II. My grandfather remembers the food tokens they used to have because they needed to ration during the war. The tokens were a paper-like substance that was firm, round, and about the size of a nickel or a quarter. During the war, everything was used and nothing was wasted. They would eat everything that was on their plate because they didn't know what or when their next meal would be. They had furnaces that burned coal to heat the house. When they had to add more coal to the furnace, they would sift through the burnt coal to find coal that had not yet been burnt and reuse it. Canned goods and preserves that my great-grandmother used to make would be stockpiled for emergencies and cold storage. This can be represented by continuity and change because back then everything was used and nothing was ever wasted. People couldn't afford to waste items back then. Nowadays we have a throwaway society, thus meaning that we care less than before, and if something is broken, we throw it out, not fix it. If someone doesn't finish dinner, it goes into the green bin rather than saving or sitting at the table until their meal is finished. We have the ability to throw things away, and we take that for granted. My great-grandfather, Harry William Ross, was in the Canadian Navy. In the beginning of the war, he served on a British Navy ship called the Howie, as Canada had more volunteer sailors than they did ships, and he earned medals for volunteering. He earned a medal from the Russian government 50 years after his contributions in the war in the 90s for working in the North Atlantic on a Canadian corvette called Thorlock. This ship was used for protecting convoy ships and supplies to Minsk, Russia. My great-grandfather's brother was also in the Canadian Navy, but he sadly passed away when he was aboard a ship in battle. This relates to historical significance due to the Canadian Navy's men who worked impeccably hard to protect the ships and supplies that were headed toward the Allied territory in sinking ships or submarines of the Axis powers. It also connects to how many men were not recognized until well after their relentless efforts in the war. I am a grade 10 student at Dr. G.W. Williams Secondary School. I enjoy working with children and hope to someday work for a summer camp as a counselor. Reading and baking are great reliefs for me when stressed. I have had a love of both eating and baking food since I was little. I cannot say I have a favorite food because I like so many different things other than fruit. Being with family is so important to me. I enjoy undertaking different tasks in my spare time, for example, sports such as swimming, volleyball, and different events with friends. My family and I enjoy watching movies together, being outside, and traveling. I hope to travel all over the world and experience different activities at each place. The places I am most interested in going to are Bora Bora, Australia, France, Italy, United Kingdom, and much more. In the future, I hope to be accepted into a university program for science because of my love for science and math, and the hopes of one day working in the medical field.